Hello, everyone, and welcome to GodSaw's Turnbuckle, the wrestling podcast I run over here on YouTube.com. And this version of GodSaw's Turnbuckle is going to be a review of AEW's Full Gear that happened last night. I am filming this on a Sunday. It happened on Saturday. And overall, I'm going to cut to the chase probably right off the bat a little bit. Overall, I thought the show, in-ring wise, and for the most part, in the terms of storyline wise, at least for the matches that had true builds to them, I thought was really good. In-ring for all the matches I thought was really good, but though a little bit of kind of quick building to get to certain matches kind of took me out of some of those matches and didn't mean too much in the end, though the in-ring action was really good. So let's start off with the buy-in. It was B. Priestley going up against Britt Baker. And also, I thought this match, storyline-based wise and in-ring wise, was actually quite good throughout the entire thing. They built it up through, B. Priestley giving the concussion to Britt Baker earlier in the year at Fight for the Fallen. They brought in the stuff from All Out to go along with that. And of course, the other stuff that they did on Dynamite to go along with it. Overall, I thought the match was given plenty of time. They actually gave it a good chunk of time on this one. It was the only match on the buy-in. So they did just give it a good chunk of time. And honestly, like I said, I thought it ended up coming off really good. And of course, well, not of course, but in the end, Britt Baker picks up the victory in this match. What I, again, thought was a pretty good match against B. Priestley. She picks up with what I believe she calls the lockjaw. It's her version of the mandible claw. So it's her putting the rings of Saturn on, and then she puts the mandible claw on when they can't get out of the maneuver. So overall, like I said, pretty good match. I thought this came off really good to go along with it. So right after this, though, you had Awesome Kong returning. And we haven't seen Awesome Kong for quite some time. I don't even think she didn't show up at All Out. No, I don't think she showed up at All Out at all. Last time I think we had seen her was for Fight for the Fallen, and that was when she was helping out Brandy against Allie in that match. So she comes out with Brandy Rhodes. Brandy Rhodes is in a more dark... it's hard... It's not like... It's almost like a bewitching to a certain degree. It's an interesting thing with where they're going with this one, because they have, of course, Awesome Kong comes out, destroys B. Priestley. Britt Baker was already gone. Destroys B. Priestley, which is very interesting because B has kind of been the heel. But now Kong destroyed another heel, and she has kind of been a heel. And anytime we've seen Brandy Rhodes... that hasn't been around Cody, she's kind of been a heel to go along with it. But they're doing a new thing where after Kong beats, lays out her opponent, they cut her hair. So Kong takes like this combat knife and cuts a lock of B. Priestley's hair, and then she smells it and everything like that. It's almost like a bewitching or something like that. And of course, Brandy is in a very elaborate outfit to go along with it for kind of a super dark. It was pretty much an all black with a veil over her face to go along with it. It's going to be interesting to see what they're going with Brandy Rhodes, and if she's even really going to be around Cody all that much when she's doing stuff on Dynamite to go along with it. I thought it was an interesting segment. Interesting to see where they go along with this. So this starts off so next we start off the first portion of, well, not the first portion, I'm stumbling over the words here, basically the start of the main show with this one. So the main show started with the Young Bucks going up against Santana and Ortiz, and honestly, I thought this was basically based off the build that started out at All Out. I am now thinking this is a very entertaining match. You even had a point where I think it might have been Santana. I think it was Santana. Took one of the Young Bucks and threw them into the crowd. And of course, the Rock and Roll Express were right there to go along with it. That's kind of where that's been going, because Santana and Ortiz powerbombed and destroyed the Rock and Roll Express during the introduction of the tag titles. to go along with that. So that played into there. Another thing that played out throughout the entire match, though you didn't see Santana Ortiz really go after it too much, but I believe it was Nick Jackson. He kicked the ring post outside. He was going through a very heavy series of strikes, and then goes to the outside to go after one of them, and kicks the ring post and injures his ankle and pretty much sells it for the entire match after that. And it was a decent amount of time that he's selling this, even to the point to where they go for the Meltzer driver, and Nick Jackson slips off the top rope because he can't put enough weight to do the flip to do the Meltzer driver. It was a nice little touch that I ended out liking. Again, I ended up thoroughly enjoying this match. They did do a decent amount of high spots in there, but not too many, and even the powerbomb blockbuster combo made sense for the finish to go along with it. I don't think that's their actual finisher. I forget what Santana Ortiz's finisher was. An Impact. That might have been it. This might be their new finisher to go along with it, with that one as well. Overall, I thought it was a very good match. After the match, Santana Ortiz tried to continue the beatdown on the Young Bucks. This also brings out Sammy Guevara, where he's vlogging down the ring, and that's kind of a fun little bit that they're doing now, is that he can... that he's actually doing some of his vlogs that he puts up on YouTube as he's going out to the ring. It's a nice little touch on that one. He starts coming out there. They continue the beat down. The Rock and Roll Express had enough. They go in to make the save. Ricky Morton does a Canadian Destroyer and then a dive to the outside of the ring to basically chase away all of them. And that was absolutely insane. Absolutely insane. I thought that was great. Overall, very good match. I enjoyed it. No real complaints on this particular one. After this, it ended up being Pac going up against Hangman Page, or Adam Hangman Page. And again, I thought this was a really good match. This was... overall, I thought a really good match in the end. Page does do a dive to the outside of the ring, which actually I think cost someone to lose their beer because it was sitting right by the railing, and it pushed the railing back, and I think Pac knocked it over with that one. Overall, decent. I really wouldn't say decent back and forth. They kind of worked more of a traditional style with... Pac kind of being in control the vast majority of the match, where Hangman Page was trying to make comebacks when and where he could. But in the end, eventually, Hangman Page gets control enough to the point that he hits the Deadeye and picks up the victory. And I thought it was a pretty good match. This is very solid. Based off of what they had done, they've kind of been they were 1-1 at this time, where Adam Page actually had a victory over Pac before Double or Nothing, which was considered an AEW match via disqualification. But then Pac got the one-on-one victory. There was another victory in there for Adam Page during the tag match where he pinned Pac. But this one was kind of the rubber match for the one-on-ones, and they have Adam Page going over in this one. And overall, like I said, I ended up actually enjoying this. I did really enjoy this one. Pac is really good. So is Adam Page. Both of them are actually very good. And it should be interesting to see where they do go from here on in. And where they do go from here as well. To go along with it, I got a little bit of water on top of my lip to go along with that. But after this, this is where I had... the only issues I had with this particular show in any way, shape, or form was probably the stuff with the next three matches. And it wasn't because the in-ring action was bad. I thought they were actually quite good. It was just that there wasn't much story for people who've been watching the weekly television show, and maybe even was it AEW Dark? Sorry, I was losing a little bit of track of mine there. But up next, it was Shawn Spears going up against Joey Janela. One thing I liked about Shawn Spears in this one, and this is probably an aspect of what Joey Janela kind of is. He's more of the hardcore-based wrestler. So Shawn Spears comes out with a No More Garbage Wrestling shirt on. I like that little touch, based off of what Joey Janela typically typically is in the terms of a more hardcore based style wrestler. This is very ground based, where Janela does try to do some not hardcore based spots because it wasn't a hardcore match in any way, shape, or form. So he doesn't try to bring out chairs or anything to go along with that, but he does try to high fly a little bit more. Shawn Spears at one point ties Joey Janela's hair with the tag rope in one of the corners, and Joey Janela has to try to get himself out and actually yanks out some of his hair to get himself away from the tag rope. That was a nice little touch on that particular one. Eventually, towards the end of the match, Joey Janela does get a super kick in, tries to go for a finish, but wasn't able to. Shawn Spears was able to duck to the outside, but gets hit with a senton. And this is one of those matches, like I said, it kind of took me out of it because there wasn't much build to it. Shawn Spears eventually, at the end of the match, removes one of the turnbuckle pads, which allows, because it causes a ref distraction to put it back, it allows for him and Tully Blanchard to actually do a spike pile driver on the outside. Spears gets Janela back into the ring. He does his the Death Valley Driver finish and picks up the victory that way. Overall, it was a good match in the terms of in-ring action. Wasn't much in the terms of story. And honestly, the next two matches, even though they're title matches, were kind of the same way to go along with that. Up next was Private Party going up against the Lucha Brothers and SCU for the AEW Tag Team titles. They did do some stuff to kind of build this into a triple threat where they had still made the Lucha Brothers #1 contenders because they did come, even though they came up short in the tag title tournament, they did not, it's not like they lost too much favor. They got all the way to the finals to go along with it. Private Party gets into this match based off of a third place victory where they took the two semifinal teams, them and the Dark Order, to see who would get into this match. Overall, again, a very good match. I thought in the terms of the in-ring, I thought this was just a very good match to go along with it. But there wasn't really too much to talk about in the terms of any type of story building. It's kind of your normal good action, especially with the Lucha Brothers in there. I do enjoy the Lucha Brothers, Pentagon and Phoenix, of course SCU being in there. And Private Party is actually becoming a very good team to watch. They're very exciting to watch. I'm just going to be interesting to see how they build more stories around this tag division. Obviously, we had a good story beat with the Young Bucks and Santana Ortiz, but you didn't really have much going into this tag title match because they just introduced those tag titles a couple of weeks ago. So not much time to fully build something off, just basically using what you had from the tag tournament to go forward. So hopefully they do more building into stuff down the line here. SCU does pick up the victory. I thought this was a decent triple threat. After the match, the Lucha Brothers continue the beatdown, continue trying to beat down both teams with this one. Eventually the lights go out, and then you get a second Pentagon Junior, or I think they were calling it Pentagon Trice, or Pentagon Thrice inside of the ring. And he does the whole bit. He does the whole bit with Pentagon. He does the zero bits and everything that go along with that, kind of like a mirror image of what was going on. And then that Pentagon attacks Pentagon Jr. and gets rid of Rey Fenix, unmasks, and then after doing the Angel's Wings, keyword there, he unmasked to reveal himself as Christopher Daniels. And I thought that was a nice little touch, and that was a decent story beat for going further on, because Pentagon Jr. and Rey Fenix did take out Christopher Daniels before the tag title tournament, and now he is back, but he is in more of the fallen angel persona than he is just normal Christopher Daniels. So let's see how this one plays out, and does this play out differently with SCU now that maybe Daniels is going to be in a little bit of a different mindset? Let's see where that goes. That was the nice little story beat to that match. Up next was the AEW Women's title match, which was Emi Sakura going up against Riho. Again, I thought this match was good. They had a decent pace of slow and fast-paced stuff, especially towards the end. They picked up the pace massively in the match. But again, if you really hadn't followed too much of what they had done beforehand, you didn't know too much about the whole teacher-student dynamic, everything like that. They did a pretty good job of doing that inside of the video package, but not much really to build to this match. They gave Amy Sakura, I think, a win on AEW Dark in a one-on-one situation, in a one-on-one match, not over someone else, but they also gave her a win after they announced the match. After they announced that there was a women's title match between the two of them, they gave a win to her over Riho in that tag match on AEW Dynamite. Not much, like I said, building into this one. Riho eventually wins this with a different variation of a roll-up. Overall, I thought the in-ring action was good, but the storytelling really didn't do much for me in this particular match. I'll kind of dig a little bit deeper into my full likes and dislikes about AEW at this point in time in a different video. I kind of wanted to keep everything just to the actual matches themselves. Overall, like I said, I thought this was a good match in the in-ring action side. They do give respect afterwards because they did play up the teacher-student thing going into it. So overall, I found it enjoyable, but honestly, I probably liked the match that was, if you're going based off the women's division, I probably liked the match on the pre-show a little bit more than this one. So this leads us to our two main events of the night. The official main event, which was Chris Jericho going up against Cody for the AEW World Heavyweight Championship. And oh boy, this match was fantastic. Cody is really showing himself as not only being just a good in-ring wrestler, but to be a good storyteller. And you got this throughout this entire match. You got bits in there. You had both Jake Hager and MJF at ringside. I liked the little bit where, Cody gets the best of Jericho at the beginning. He gets frustrated, so he goes over to where the judges were, which, by the way, the judges, if it did go to a time limit draw, were Dean Malenko, Arn Anderson, and the Great Muta. Obviously, I think a lot of people knew this one wasn't gonna go to a 60-minute time limit draw, but it was nice that they put a little touch in there to make it like, oh, if we get a draw, we just get a draw. No, you're gonna get a winner in some way, shape, or form to go along with it. Early on in the match, and like I said, and like from before, Jericho gets frustrated and gets in Dean Malenko's face at one point, which is kind of a nice little nod to their storylines that they had back in WCW to go along with it. I like that little touch in there. And so it made like, ooh, is Malenko going to try to screw over Jericho? The time limit happens or something like that. They were trying to throw little nuances and touches throughout this entire match, and I found it very enjoyable. Cody does get busted open pretty early on. Hard to tell if he bladed or got busted open the hard way. With that one, it looked like by the gash it was more of the hard way. With that one, he got busted open right above his right eye, like right up in this area. When he did a dive to the outside, and they had the elevated ramp. He lands face first on the ramp and then gets busted open that way. Of course, Jericho works over this as much as he possibly can throughout the entire match. They do try to clean it up as much as they can as well. Jake Hager eventually gets himself ejected from the match after going after Cody at one point in time, but he ends up laying out MJF beforehand. During this time of the distraction, Jericho hits Cody with the title, but Cody kicks out of it. Also, Jericho will eventually kick out of the Crossroads as well. And as Cody's going for another disaster kick, Jericho actually counters that into a code breaker, which does only lead to a 2. He eventually puts in the walls of Jericho. He does put in the walls of Jericho. Cody gets to the ropes. They have some more back and forth. Eventually, Jericho gets him in the not into the walls of Jericho, more of the lion tamer, which is where he puts the knee on the back and everything to go along with that. MJF has a towel in his hand throughout the entire time, and it's kind of like, should I, shouldn't I? And eventually MJF throws in the towel, which causes Cody to lose the match, and now Cody cannot compete for the AEW World Championship anymore on that particular one. So, everybody's celebrating. Chris Jericho and the rest of the Inner Circle come out to celebrate. This was a good night for the Inner Circle because the Santana Ortiz beat the Young Bucks. Chris Jericho kept the title. I thought this was a fantastic match to go along with it. The Inner Circle, they come out to celebrate. It looks like MJF is in the ring pleading with Cody. It's like, I'm sorry I had to do that. I didn't want to. Cody's extremely frustrated, but then calms down. And he goes to pick up MJF. And, MJF has kind of been playing that whole, he's very friendly with Cody, but kind of a prick to everybody else type of thing. Going along with that, he was saying he was sorry for throwing in the towel. He goes to pick MJF up. It looks like they're just gonna, have a friendly embrace. Nope. MJF gives Cody a low blow and basically is starting to yell, "It's my time. It's my time now. Screw you." He leaves. As he's going up the rampway, don't know if it was planned or if it was actually a fan just doing this, because someone throws a drink on MJF, hits him square in the face and covers up his entire jacket to go along with it. It was a very nice visual as they were leaving, and everybody was booing the living crap out of this. This is, in the terms of getting heat in this day and age, this is one of those things. As I hit my microphone, because I waved my hands a little bit. But in the terms of getting actual heel heat, it's hard to do that in this day and age where people kind of, if we like what you're doing in the ring, we're just going to cheer you and we don't care. But not here. MJF just total full heel. He's been healing up on everybody else, with the exception of Cody. So it's kind of one of those things like he doesn't like anyone else, but he likes Cody. So he helps out the Elite and everything to go along with it. That's not going to be anymore. And now MJF has gone full heel. So before I get in, I'm going to take another quick drink before getting into the main event match of the night, which the main event match was the Lights Out match, the non-sanctioned match between Jon Moxley and Kenny Omega. This is a very polarizing match. As many people might know, or you might not necessarily know with me in general, but I've kind of talked about this in the past with hardcore stipulations and hardcore-based matches. I'm not the biggest fan of them, with the exception of the ones that make sense. It's like these guys just don't like each other. You need some kind of non-sanctioned or hardcore based rule based on this story. It's not just there for the sake of, hitting people with weapons, basically. And this is one of those matches that was a little bit different. Now, did they go a little bit overboard with this one? Yeah, they did on that. But it's very polarizing to see how many people actually liked this match and how many people hated this match based upon that hardcore stipulation. And this, based off of their story and everything that had been going around with it, Moxley coming out at the end of Double or Nothing and laying out Chris Jericho and laying out and brawling, and then eventually laying out Kenny Omega and then throwing him off those poker chips, makes it a bit of sense. But also it makes sense that they kind of needed some kind of hardcore based style match, because, well, that promo that Kenny did right before All Out, because of what happened to Moxley's elbow and getting the MRSA infection, it made sense. You could just get that vibe that these two guys did not like each other, that they needed more than just a match. They needed something non-sanctioned. They needed something hardcore. Moxley drove Kenny Omega through a glass table on Dynamite, which plays into this match as well. As much as this match made me cringe because I'm not as keen about hardcore matches as I used to be, because I did enjoy hardcore-based matches for a little while, at least in the terms of times with ECW and the hardcore-based stuff that we did see on there. I was not the biggest fan of the light tubes and the CZW stuff back in the day, but I'm not as keen about those hardcore-based matches anymore. But I would, and this one made me cringe a bit too. Don't get me wrong, this one made me cringe a bit, but it got the point across. And they got the point across before the match that these two didn't like each other in any way, shape, or form. They needed something more. They needed to go beyond than just a match. And that's what they did here. You had your standard fare of hardcore matches, which were, of course, trash cans. They did bring out the barbed wire baseball bat. Kenny does bring out the barbed wire broom and actually sweeps the back of Jon Moxley with the barbed wire, which was very sickening. They do bring out, it was either a screwdriver or an ice pick, I forget which one, and it gets stuck into the turnbuckle pad. You got broken glass in this one. Kenny Omega brings out broken glass, which was a play off of that table that Moxley drove Kenny Omega through. They also, let's see here, which also brought into an aspect of the match because they did do a decent amount with the glass because Moxley gets driven into the glass with a spine buster. Eventually, Kenny Omega drags him through the glass, puts on a sharpshooter in order to break the hold because because there was no rope breaks, obviously. Jon Moxley drags himself through the glass to climb himself up the ropes to break the hold. I thought there was some really good stuff in this one. You did have a dive to the outside by Omega that drives Moxley through a table as well. And eventually, you get to the point where both of them are outside on the rampway because Moxley and Omega are fighting up the rampway. Obviously, pinfalls and everything have to happen inside the ring, but they're fighting up the rampway, and eventually you have Omega calling for the Bucks and Adam Page to bring something out. First, they come out and they try to reason with Omega, and Omega is not having any of it. And then they bring out what it was, and it was a barbed wire spider web. So it was a big rectangular piece that was just all barbed wire. It looked like we were going to get a one-winged angel through it, but then eventually it was countered, and then countered by Moxley into a suplex into there, sending both of them in there. They have to get pulled out and everything to go along with that. They eventually fight themselves back into the ring. Moxley hits the paradigm shift on the glass, which is which was the original Dirty Deeds for his time in WWE. Omega kicks out of that. Moxley then exposes the padding and exposes the wood inside the ring. Afterwards, eventually, Omega uses his own finisher, or uses the paradigm shift on the wood to Moxley, which he kicks out of that. Omega misses a Phoenix splash onto the wood. He didn't land on the padding at all. He just landed on the exposed wood. Like I said, this was insane. Moxley, right after this, picks up Omega, hits the Death Rider for the pin. Jon Moxley wins. In the terms of the match, like I said, it got its point across. They got the point across before the match, and you got it even further in this one, that these two did not like each other. They needed something more, and how far were they going to go to get a win, but to get a win that wasn't going to even count towards the record, because they made that evident as well, because all non-sanctioned matches do not count towards your records. to go along with it. Like I said, I actually enjoyed this because even though it made me cringe, I'm not much on the hardcore base side of everything. But I ended up enjoying this match because they were able to portray that story before the match of how much these two didn't like each other. And then during the match, how far were they going to go? And you were intrigued to watch it to go along with that. Now, I could see both sides of people who are looking at it on the super ends, where it's like, I love hardcore matches and loving every second of this. I don't like hardcore matches and hating every second of this to go along with it. But this is one of those hardcore matches, to me, it made sense for it to be there. And I actually enjoyed it because of that, even though how much I ended up cringing during the match itself to go along with it. It was a very uncomfortable match. And, you know, like I said, I think they got their point across on that one. Overall, I enjoyed AEW Full Gear. I thought it was a very good show, and I'm not going to take that away. Like I said, certain aspects with especially the middle three matches that didn't have much story build to go along with it kind of took me out of it for a little bit, but even that, the in-ring action was still quite good on that one. Anything that had storylines based around it, I thought came out really good on those ends. So overall, I thoroughly enjoyed AEW's Full Gear. Hopefully for people who watched, they enjoyed. If you didn't, that's absolutely fine to go along with that. You can always leave a comment down there seeing how you felt about the show. If you liked what I did here, please give it a like, a share, subscribe, anything that you can do for that one. I thank you guys for watching. Take care and have a great rest of your night.